future. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has been honoured by the South African Post Office today. SAP presented the president with a stamp bearing his image. Our reporter Annika Larson is tracking that side of the story for us from Parliament. She joins us now live. Annika, I was following your tweets, following you on Twitter throughout the morning, and you were saying a record number of journalists there for this World Post Office Day. I can't imagine that those stamps were at the top of their minds.
Yes, we really, where do the jokes start? A stampede to get into the President's office today, to have a look at the new stamp in honour of World Post Day. Every President is honoured with the stamp. Here, I've got one for you. As the President said, it's very cheap. It's only about R4.75, I think it was. Tommy's our cameraman. Can you get a good picture of that stamp? So that is the new stamp with the President's face on it, in honour of World Post Day today. But as you correctly said, that's not really why we were there, although the presidency had said beforehand, look, there's not going to be any sort of statement on the future of the Finance Minister, Nene, post his testimony at the state capture inquiry. But of course, we always have to take our chances and do what we can. Shortly after the press conference was ended by Kusela Diko, the spokesperson for the presidency, there was no time for question and answer sessions, which is unusual. And so we as journalists were forced to ask the president a few questions. And this is what he had to say.
Mr. President, any views, please, can you take us through with regard to the Finance Minister?
Does he select us there?
Please, Mr. President, could you take us into your confidence?
I'm a bit hard of hearing.
I'll come closer.
Does he select your confidence, Mr. President?
I'm hard of hearing. I should go to a T and ear.
I'll whisper in your ear, Mr. President.
Okay, see you later.
So, Annika, I mean, you were heard there in the background shouting that question to the president about whether he has confidence in Nene. He then replies and says he's a bit hard of hearing. Was it surprising to you that, given it's now been days since this, shall we call it, PR disaster around Nene has first surfaced? Last Friday was when he apologized to South Africans via that press statement, saying that he had lied about meeting the Guptas. It's now been days since then. It's Tuesday. And there were some rumors that, in fact, that announcement about his future would have been made at Nenes, which is where that press conference this morning happened.
Yes, I don't think it would have been held at the unveiling of the new stamp, but there was some hope that possibly with that doorstop, which is what you saw there, where I certainly tried to get some sort of reflection from the president, and he very charmingly kept on saying that he couldn't hear me and I had to keep on shouting the question. I'm surprised his security detail didn't escort me out of there. But he dealt with it very well. But you can see it's very clear he did not want to comment. And the new speculation, and I say it's absolute speculation from this side, there's a lacuna at the moment of comment, and so this is what happens in times like these. But that ahead of the midterm, or the mini budget we like to call it, on October the 24th, there is a need for stability, that the President wants the markets to not have any kind of change or instability ahead of it. There's a ratings announcement on Friday, and really the message needs to be that Minister Nene needs to deliver that mini budget in order for there to be less volatility on the markets, and for foreign investors to see some, as I said, some kind of stability.
Yeah, and as we continue to unpack the speculation, Annika, as you say, it is just speculation at this stage with no official comment from either side. The fact that the mini-budget is happening in 2 weeks' time, as you say. Also, the IMF and World Bank annual meeting, which takes place tomorrow in Indonesia. The finance minister meant to represent the country there So he should be on a plane there to that meeting by today, as we speak, in fact. But no confirmation either way, so we're just sort of trying to read the signs, I suppose.
Yes, and I think that we move into dangerous territory when there is this big black empty hole and this lacuna, this lack of knowledge, this lack of any kind of official statement. We've seen it during the Zuma years, but remember we've had 5 finance ministers in 9 years since the Zuma administration, and it's very bad for investor sentiment. And I think that this is a terrible conundrum for the president. Nene was called back from the private sector. Nene is his man. He wanted him, but clearly, well, it would seem that he didn't know that Minister Nene had made these 11 or so visits to the Gupta compound, and we don't know how many other ministers had made those visits too. Remember, there was a very different culture, if you like, at that time during the Zuma administration, and it was very much a case of paranoia, and if number one says you do something, you pretty much do it. So I think his other complexity in this is, if he gets rid of Nene, then surely the same needs to be done to other ministers who've been found in contempt of court, who've had big costs orders by the Constitutional Court made against them, etc. There's Malusi Gigaba, who's also been, who's going to testify later on this afternoon at the Gupta naturalization inquiry. I'm on my way there now. So what's good for one should be good for all. And so I think that he's got a very, very difficult decision to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Annika, you call it a complexity. Others are calling it an opportunity for President Cyril Ramaphosa, in fact, to clean house.
I think it's, you know, he wants stability ahead of 2019. He said it's an interim cabinet. He needs, we know that there are unity members, supposedly, and I say that in inverted commas, unity members in that cabinet. That wouldn't necessarily be his first choice. But, you know, if he gets rid of Nene or accepts his resignation, we're told that Minister Nene asked to resign, although there's no precedent for that, accepting that resignation, then there are other ministers in the cabinet that also ought to go. Malusi Gigaba himself has admitted that he went to Saxonwell too. So I think it's a very difficult position for him to be in. It could be his way of consolidating his own cabinet, or it could be a way of just keeping things steady ahead of 2019.
All right, well, thanks very much for that. Our senior reporter, Annika Larson, live to us from Parliament, just as we continue to unpack the various issues around the future of Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene.